What happens when a global superstar refuses to play along? When the carefully controlled rhythm of daytime television cracks under the weight of truth, tension, and raw emotion. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Stage View, like this video, and drop a comment below. Because what you're about to witness isn't just another celebrity interview. It's a moment that no one in that studio was prepared for. The lights inside the studio glow brighter than usual that morning, almost as if they sense something is coming. The familiar theme music fades out, and the hosts take their seats behind the curved desk, smiles polished, posture perfect. The audience claps on cue, a warm wave of applause rolling across the room. Everything feels routine, predictable, controlled. Until she walks in. Lady Gaga doesn't just enter a room, she arrives. There's a stillness that follows her, like the air itself pauses to adjust. She's dressed elegantly, but there's an edge to her presence today. Something sharper. Her smile is there, but it doesn't quite reach her eyes. She greets the hosts one by one, exchanging quick hugs and polite laughter. But when she reaches Sunny Hostin, there's a flicker, so brief most would miss it. A pause, a glance, a moment of unspoken awareness. They sit. The conversation begins lightly, as it always does. Career updates, recent projects, a few jokes to warm up the crowd. Gaga answers gracefully, her voice calm, controlled, almost rehearsed. She knows this dance. She's done it 100 times before. But today, something is different. Sunny leans forward slightly, her tone shifting. Just a fraction, but enough to change the energy in the room. So, Gaga, she begins, her voice measured. You've always been very outspoken, very bold in your views. Some people admire that. Others feel it can be divisive. Do you ever think about the responsibility that comes with that kind of influence? A simple question. On the surface. But the air tightens. Gaga's smile fades. Not completely, but enough to reveal something underneath. Her fingers lace together in her lap. She tilts her head slightly, studying Sunny for a moment longer than expected. I think about responsibility every single day, Gaga replies, her voice soft but steady. But I also think about honesty. And sometimes honesty makes people uncomfortable. The audience murmurs lightly. A subtle shift. Sunny nods, but there's a persistence in her expression now. She isn't backing off. Of course, she continues, but there's a difference between honesty and pushing narratives that can influence millions of people in ways they might not fully understand. There it is. The first spark. Gaga exhales slowly, her gaze lowering for just a second before rising again. This time sharper, more focused. Are you saying people can't think for themselves? She asks. The room goes quiet. Sunny blinks, caught off guard. Not by the question itself, but by the directness of it. No, she says carefully. I'm saying that when you have a platform as large as yours, the things you say carry weight. And that weight can shape opinions, especially among younger audiences. Gaga leans back slightly, her posture relaxing, but her eyes remain locked. Everything we say shapes opinions, she responds. You, me, everyone at this table. The difference is, I don't pretend otherwise. A ripple moves through the audience. Some nod. Others shift in their seats. One of the co-hosts tries to lighten the mood, letting out a small laugh. Okay, we're getting deep already. But the tension doesn't break. Sunny presses on. There have been moments, she says, where critics argue that your messaging can come across as performative, that it's more about the spectacle than the substance. And just like that, the line is crossed. Gaga's expression changes completely. The softness disappears. What does that mean? She asks quietly. The question isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It cuts through the room like a blade. Sunny hesitates, just for a second. I mean that sometimes. No, Gaga interrupts, still calm but firmer now. What does performative mean to you? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're questioning my sincerity. The audience gasps softly. The shift is undeniable now. This isn't an interview anymore. It's something else. Sunny straightens, her composure tightening. I'm asking what many people are thinking, she replies. When you make bold statements, when you align yourself with certain causes, how do we know it's not just part of the image? Gaga lets out a small laugh, but there's no humor in it. My image? She repeats. Do you think I built my entire life, my career, my art, just to play a role for people? Her voice rises slightly, not in volume, but in intensity. I've lived through things you can't put into a headline. I've fought for things that didn't benefit me in any way except being able to sleep at night knowing I told the truth. The audience is completely silent now. You can feel it, the tension, the weight of every word hanging in the air. Sunny opens her mouth to respond, but Gaga continues, leaning forward this time. You want to talk about responsibility? She says. Let's talk about the responsibility of asking questions that don't reduce people to labels, that don't assume intention without understanding experience. A co-host shifts uncomfortably. Another glances toward the producers off camera. This wasn't in the plan. Sunny's expression hardens slightly, but there's something else there too, something like realization. I'm not reducing you, she says, her voice quieter now. I'm challenging you. Gaga nods slowly. And I'm answering you, she replies. Honestly. There's a pause. A long one. The kind that stretches just enough to make everyone aware of it. Then Gaga adds, almost softly. But honesty isn't always comfortable. And sometimes people mistake discomfort for offense. The audience exhales, almost collectively. The moment lingers. And just when it seems like the tension might finally ease, Sunny leans in again, her voice lower, more deliberate. Then let me ask you this, she says. Do you think there's ever a line? A point where honesty becomes harmful? Gaga doesn't answer immediately. She looks out toward the audience, then back at Sunny. Her expression softens, but only slightly. I think silence can be more harmful than honesty, she says. Every time. The words land like a final note, resonating, echoing. And in that moment, something shifts in the room. Not just tension. Something deeper. Because this isn't just about a question anymore. It's about two perspectives, colliding in real time under bright lights in front of millions watching at home. And no one, not the audience, not the hosts, not even the producers behind the scenes, knows what's going to happen next. Because the conversation isn't over. Not even close. Writing. The silence doesn't fade, it stretches. It clings to the room like a held breath no one dares to release. The audience sits frozen, eyes locked on the table where something far bigger than a daytime interview is unfolding. The producers behind the cameras exchange glances, subtle hand signals flickering in the shadows, but no one steps in. Because you can't interrupt a moment like this. You can only watch it unfold. Gaga remains still for a beat longer, her gaze steady, her expression unreadable. But inside, something is shifting. You can see it in the way her shoulders rise and fall with a deeper breath, in the slight tightening of her jaw. She knows this isn't just about her anymore. It's about what she represents. Sunny leans back slightly, her hands clasped together now. She studies Gaga carefully, not with hostility, but with a kind of sharp curiosity. The kind that doesn't let things go. So silence is the greater harm, Sunny repeats, almost as if testing the weight of Gaga's words. But what about when speaking out creates division? When it fuels anger, misunderstanding? Gaga tilts her head, her eyes narrowing just slightly, not in aggression, but in focus. Division already exists, she replies. Speaking about it doesn't create it. It reveals it. A murmur ripples through the audience again, this time louder, more divided. Some nod in agreement. Others exchange uncertain glances. Sunny notices. She leans forward again, sensing the shift, pressing into it. But revealing something isn't always enough, she says. Sometimes it escalates things. Sometimes it pushes people further apart instead of bringing them together. Gaga's lips press into a thin line for a moment. She nods slowly, acknowledging the point, but not conceding. Maybe, she says. But pretending everything is fine doesn't bring people together either. It just delays the truth. Her voice softens at the end, but the conviction doesn't. One of the co-hosts finally jumps in, her tone cautious, almost pleading for balance. I think what Sunny is trying to say is that there's a responsibility to consider how messages are received, not just how they're intended. Gaga turns her head toward her, offering a small, understanding nod. And I do consider that, she says. More than you might think. Then she pauses. And for the first time, her guard drops, just a fraction. There are nights, she continues, her voice quieter now, more personal, when I lie awake replaying things I've said, wondering if I could have said them differently. Softer. Clearer. The room shifts again, this time not with tension, but with something closer to empathy. But then I remember, she adds, her eyes lifting again, stronger now, that softness isn't always what the truth needs. Sunny watches her closely, her expression no longer sharp, but thoughtful. And what if someone else believes their truth just as strongly, Sunny asks, but it directly conflicts with yours? There it is again. Not an attack. A challenge. Gaga leans back, exhaling slowly, as if grounding herself before answering. Then we listen, she says simply. A beat. We don't have to agree. But we listen. Sunny nods, but there's still something unresolved in her eyes. And if listening isn't enough, she presses. Gaga meets her gaze, unwavering. Then we keep listening. A faint, almost incredulous laugh escapes from somewhere in the audience. The tension is shifting again, less explosive now, but deeper. More complex. Sunny sits back, crossing one leg over the other, her posture more relaxed, but her mind clearly still turning. You make it sound simple, she says. But in reality, it's not. Gaga smiles faintly. I didn't say it was simple, she replies. I said it was necessary. Another pause. This one heavier. Because now the conversation isn't just about Gaga's words anymore. It's about the world outside that studio. Sunny glances briefly toward the audience, then back at Gaga. Let me be honest with you, she says, her tone shifting again, less confrontational, more direct. There are people who feel like voices like yours overshadow others. That when someone with your level of fame speaks, it drowns out perspectives that don't have the same platform. The room tightens again. This is different. More personal. More pointed. Gaga's expression stills completely. For a moment, she doesn't respond. And that silence says more than any immediate answer could. When she finally speaks, her voice is slower. More deliberate. I've never wanted to drown anyone out, she says. Ever. She leans forward again, her hands resting on the table now. But I won't shrink myself to make other people more comfortable either. The words land hard. Clear. Unapologetic. Sunny holds her gaze. So where's the balance? She asks. Gaga's eyes soften slightly, but her voice doesn't waver. The balance isn't in being quieter, she says. It's in making space. Sunny raises an eyebrow slightly. And how do you make space when you're already taking up so much of it? The question hits. You can feel it ripple through the room. Even the co-hosts go still again. Gaga's lips part, but she doesn't answer right away. Because this one cuts deeper. She looks down for just a second, her fingers tracing the edge of the table. A small, almost invisible grounding motion. Then she looks back up. And when she does, there's something different in her eyes. Not just confidence. Vulnerability. I use my space to amplify others, she says. Not replace them. Her voice carries a quiet strength now. Less defensive, more resolute. I've brought people on stage who would never have been seen otherwise. I've used my platform to highlight voices that deserve to be heard. But I can't force the world to listen to them the same way it listens to me. Sunny listens carefully. No interruption this time. And maybe that's the real issue, Gaga continues. Not that I'm too loud, but that the world doesn't listen enough to those without a microphone. The audience reacts again, this time with scattered applause, hesitant at first, then growing. But it's not unanimous. Some remain still, watching, thinking. Sunny exhales slowly, nodding once. That's a fair point, she admits. And for the first time since the conversation began, there's a crack in the tension. Not a break, but a shift. A moment of mutual acknowledgement. One of the co-hosts quickly jumps in again, sensing the opening. Okay, wow. This is definitely one of the most intense conversations we've had in a while, she says with a nervous laugh. But I think it's important. The audience chuckles lightly, the energy easing just a little. But Gaga doesn't fully relax. Neither does Sunny, because beneath the surface, something is still unresolved. And they both know it. Sunny turns slightly toward Gaga again, her voice quieter now, but more precise than ever. There's one more thing, she says. And just like that, the tension snaps back into place. Gaga's eyes lock onto hers. Waiting. What happens, Sunny continues slowly, when the person challenging you isn't trying to silence you, but is trying to hold you accountable? The question hangs in the air. Heavy. Unavoidable. Gaga doesn't move. Doesn't blink. For a moment, it feels like time itself has paused. And then, she leans in, closer than before. Her voice low. Steady. If the accountability is real, she says, I listen. A beat. But if it's rooted in assumption, or in misunderstanding who I am. Her gaze sharpens. I push back. The audience gasps softly again. Because this is the moment where everything shifts. From discussion to confrontation. And as the cameras continue to roll, capturing every expression, every breath, every flicker of emotion, one thing becomes painfully clear. This conversation isn't winding down. It's building towards something much bigger. And whatever comes next, No one in that studio is ready for it. Writing. You can feel it now. That invisible line crossed. The kind that turns a conversation into a moment people will replay, rewind, and dissect frame by frame. The kind that lives far beyond the studio walls. Gaga doesn't lean back this time. She stays forward, close to the table, close to Sunny, close to the tension itself, like she's choosing to sit inside it instead of stepping away. Sunny notices. And instead of retreating, she meets her there. There's no interruption from the co-hosts now. No nervous laughter. No attempt to redirect. Because everyone knows. If they speak, they'll break something fragile. And right now, this moment needs to stay unbroken. Sunny folds her hands together again, but her posture has changed. There's a steadiness to her now. A quiet resolve. Then let's talk about that, she says, her voice calm but deliberate. Accountability. Gaga nods once. Let's. The word is simple, but it lands like a challenge accepted. Sunny takes a breath, choosing her next words carefully, but not cautiously. There have been times, she begins, when people felt hurt by things you've said or how you've said them. Not because they misunderstood you, but because they experienced your words differently than you intended. Gaga listens. Really listens. No interruption this time. And when those people speak up, Sunny continues, they're not always trying to attack you. Sometimes they're asking you to see something you might not see from where you stand. The audience is silent again, hanging on every word. Gaga's expression softens, but not with surrender. With consideration. I hear that, she says quietly. A small shift, but an important one. Sunny nods slightly, encouraged, but she doesn't ease up. So when that happens, she asks, what do you do in that moment? Not in reflection later, but right there when someone tells you, you hurt them. Gaga exhales slowly, and for the first time since this began, she looks away. Not out of avoidance, but because this question reaches somewhere deeper. When someone tells me I hurt them, she says, her voice lower now, more personal, my first instinct isn't to defend myself. She pauses. It's to understand. A murmur moves through the audience again. But understanding doesn't always mean agreeing, she adds, lifting her gaze back to Sunny. And that's where it gets complicated. Sunny leans slightly closer. How so? Gaga's fingers tighten together briefly before she answers. Because sometimes, she says, what hurts someone isn't what I said. It's what it represents to them. The words land softly, but carry weight. And I can respect that, she continues. I can hold space for that. But I can't always change what I believe just because it hurts someone to hear it. There's a pause. Sunny studies her carefully. And do you think that can come across as dismissive? She asks. Gaga shakes her head slightly. No, she says. I think it can come across as honest. The air tightens again. Not sharply this time, but steadily. Because now they're not just discussing ideas. They're standing inside them. Sunny sits back for a moment, processing. Then she tilts her head, her voice quieter, but more pointed than before. What about when the hurt isn't just emotional, she asks, but tied to something bigger? Something systemic, something deeply rooted in people's lived experiences. The question lands heavier than anything before it. You can feel it in the audience, in the stillness of the co-hosts, in the way even the cameras seem to linger longer on Gaga's face. Gaga doesn't answer immediately. She inhales. Slow, measured. And when she speaks, her voice carries something new. Not just conviction. Wait. Then it matters even more, she says. Sunny's eyes flicker slightly. Then I have to listen even harder. Another pause. But listening, Gaga continues, her voice strengthening again, doesn't mean I erase my voice. It means I expand it. Sunny raises an eyebrow slightly. Expand it how? Gaga leans in again. By making room for the truth I didn't see before, without abandoning the truth I already know. The audience reacts, this time with a mix of applause and uncertainty. Because that answer, it doesn't settle the tension. It deepens it. Sunny nods slowly, but there's a hint of skepticism in her expression. And who decides which truth takes priority? She asks. There it is again. That edge. That push. Gaga doesn't hesitate this time. No one person decides that, she says. That's the whole point. She gestures lightly with her hand. It's not a hierarchy. It's a conversation. Sunny leans forward again, her tone sharpening just slightly. But conversations require compromise. Gaga meets her gaze instantly. Not always. The room shifts again. Sunny's expression tightens just a fraction. No compromise, she presses. Gaga shakes her head. Not when it comes to core values. The words are firm, unyielding, and for the first time, Sunny doesn't respond immediately. Because that answer, it closes a door. The silence that follows is different from before. Less fragile, more decisive. One of the co-hosts shifts in her seat, clearly feeling the weight of the moment. Okay, she says carefully, trying to ease the tension just a little. But isn't there a risk in that? In holding so tightly to your values that you leave no room for growth? Gaga turns to her, her expression thoughtful. Growth doesn't come from letting go of your values, she says. It comes from understanding them more deeply. Then she glances back at Sunny, and being willing to question how you live them. Sunny nods once. That I agree with. A brief moment of alignment. But it doesn't last. Because Sunny isn't done. And what happens, she says, her voice steady again, when someone feels like your values conflict with theirs in a way that impacts them directly? Gaga's eyes narrow slightly, not in anger, but in focus. Then we face that conflict, she says. No avoiding it, no avoiding it. Sunny holds her gaze. And if facing it means losing support, losing fans, losing influence, now the question cuts somewhere else. Deeper, more personal. The audience leans in. This is the part they've been waiting for. Gaga doesn't look away. If I have to choose between keeping support and staying true to what I believe, she says slowly, that's not a real choice. A ripple moves through the room. Some clap. Some don't. Sunny watches her closely. And you're okay with the consequences of that? Gaga's answer is immediate. Yes. No hesitation. No softening. Just certainty. And that certainty, it shifts something. Because now this isn't just about words. It's about stakes. Real ones. Sunny exhales slowly, leaning back again. For a moment, it looks like she might finally let the conversation settle. But then, she says one more thing. Quietly. Carefully. But what if being true to yourself means someone else feels unseen? The question hangs in the air like a final test. Gaga doesn't respond right away. This time, the pause is longer. Heavier. Because this is the heart of it. She looks out at the audience again. At the faces watching her. Listening to her. Judging her. Understanding her. Misunderstanding her. All at once. And when she speaks, her voice is softer than it's been since the beginning. Then I have to ask myself, she says, if I'm doing enough to see them too. The room stills completely. No movement. No sound. Just that sentence. Echoing. Lingering. And for a moment, everything feels suspended. Because in that answer, there's no victory. No defeat. Just truth. Complicated. Unfinished. And as the cameras continue to roll, capturing every second of this raw, unscripted exchange, one thing becomes undeniable. This isn't just a conversation anymore. It's a collision of perspectives that refuses to resolve neatly. And somewhere behind the scenes, producers are counting down. Time is running out. But the tension? It's nowhere near finished. Because what happens next won't stay inside this studio. You can almost hear it, the silent countdown ticking behind the cameras. 5, 4, 3. But no one says it out loud. Because no one wants to be the one to end this. The studio feels different now. Heavier. Charged. Like something irreversible has already happened. And everyone is just now realizing it. Gaga sits back slowly, but not in retreat. In reflection. Her eyes drift for a moment, not lost, but searching. As if she's replaying every word that's just been spoken, weighing it, measuring it, deciding what it all means beyond this table, beyond this moment. Sunny watches her. And for the first time since it began, there's no push in her posture. No edge in her tone. Just stillness. Respectful. Measured. Real. The audience shifts in their seats, some leaning forward, others sitting back as if trying to process what they've just witnessed. This wasn't entertainment. Not really. This was something else. Something that felt unscripted, unfiltered, and maybe a little too honest for daytime television. One of the co-hosts glances toward the stage manager off camera, clearly waiting for direction. A subtle hand gesture comes back. Wrap it. But how do you wrap something like this? How do you place a neat bow on a conversation that never tried to be neat? There's a brief hesitation. Then, well, the co-host says carefully, her voice softer than before, this has definitely been a powerful conversation. An understatement. The audience lets out a scattered, uncertain applause. Not the usual enthusiastic clapping, but something more hesitant. Thoughtful. because no one's quite sure how to feel yet. Sunny turns slightly toward Gaga again. And this time, when she speaks, it's different. Thank you, she says simply. Not performative. Not rehearsed. Just honest. Gaga meets her eyes. And for the first time since the tension began, she smiles. Not the polished, camera-ready smile from earlier, but a real one. Subtle. Earned. Thank you, she replies. And just like that, it ends. Or at least it's supposed to. The music fades in. The cameras begin to pull back. The audience claps a little louder now, filling the space where words have run out. But something lingers. Something unresolved. Because moments like this don't end when the cameras stop rolling. They follow you. And within minutes, they spread. Backstage, the energy is completely different. Producers move quickly, voices low but urgent. Clips are already being flagged. Segments marked. Keywords flying between screens. Did you catch that line? I push back. That's the one that's going to trend. No, the silence is more harmful. That's the headline. Phones are out. Social feeds refreshing in real time. And just like that, the outside world begins to react. At first, it's subtle. A few tweets. A couple of clips. But then, it explodes. Within an hour, short segments of the exchange are everywhere. Reposted, re-edit, reframed. Each clip telling a slightly different version of the same story. One version shows Gaga as fearless, unapologetic, standing her ground, refusing to be cornered. Another paints Sunny as relentless, asking the hard questions no one else would dare to ask. And then there are the debates. Thousands of them. Comments flooding in faster than anyone can read. She handled that with so much grace. No, she dodged the real issue. Sunny was right to push her. Gaga didn't back down, and that's exactly the point. The internet does what it always does. It chooses sides. But something unusual happens too. In between the arguments, there are people listening, really listening. Clips of that final moment. Then I have to ask myself if I'm doing enough to see them too, start to circulate on their own. No edits, no dramatic cuts, just the words, and the silence that followed them. And those clips, they hit differently, because they don't feel like a win or a loss. They feel like a question, one that doesn't have an easy answer. News outlets pick it up next. Headlines flash across screens. A tense exchange turns reflective on live TV. Gaga pushes back, but leaves room for reflection. Sunny Hostin asks the questions everyone's thinking. Panels form. Commentators weigh in. Some praise the conversation as necessary, an example of what real dialogue should look like. Others criticize it. Too uncomfortable, too unresolved, too raw for a morning show audience. Back in the studio, long after the audience has left. The chairs are empty. The lights dimmed. But the echoes remain. Gaga stands near the exit, her team gathered around her, voices buzzing softly. But she's quiet. Thoughtful. Not shaken. But affected. Because even when you stand your ground, moments like that stay with you. Across the room, Sunny gathers her notes, sliding them into a folder. She pauses for a second, her fingers resting on the edge of the table where it all happened. She exhales, not in relief, but in reflection, because asking hard questions comes with its own weight. And somewhere in that space, between pushback and accountability, between truth and perception, something real happened, something neither of them fully controlled. Something that now belongs to everyone watching. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the moment was never meant to be resolved. Maybe it was meant to be felt, to be questioned, to be continued, not on a stage, but in conversations far beyond it. And now, it's your turn. What did you see in that moment? Was it a powerful stand for truth, or a clash that revealed deeper divides? Did Gaga push back in the right way? Or did Sunny ask the questions that needed to be asked? There's no single answer. But your perspective matters. So drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation doesn't end here. And if you want more moments like this, the ones that go beyond headlines and into the heart of what really happens behind the scenes, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, like this video, and stay tuned. Because the next story might be even more explosive.